everybody, this is Michelle with Creative Operation and Country Craft Creations, and we're going to start today with the tutorial. This is part 2 of my challenge to myself. I took my design team package and split it in half. I'm going to show you pictures of those two halves. And then I did a first video where I made a junk journal. I was asked to make a junk journal. I was asked to make a mini album. I couldn't decide which one to do, so I did both. So I split up my stuff in half, made the junk journal, and here's a picture of that. I do have a tutorial for that, and that is linked down below in the description box, so please check out the description box. Also want to let you know that in the description box, I do have a cutting guide for this, and I also have links to all of the products that I used from Country Craft Creations, and those are referral links. So if you do click on those, I will get a little bit of a commission when you use my particular links to do your shopping through Country Craft Creations. So I would appreciate it if you would make sure that you do that. And I do have a link that is a general link for the entire store. So please do check those out. But that's, you know, of course, totally up to you. But if you do, I appreciate it. And I thank you so much. So the other thing I wanted to let you know is that obviously I am sick and I sound terrible. I think I feel a little bit better, but we're gonna get through this. I really want to show you this album. This album is going to be fun. So I took 6 pieces of pattern paper. I took 4 sheets of the cardstock that I received in my design team package, and then with that, in combination with Kraft Artisan Cardstock that I used from my own stash and some Natural Artisan Cardstock that I used from my stash, I made an album that will hold over 50 photos, and I think you're gonna love it. So let's get started. We're going to make what I'm calling a do-si-do waterfall album, and it also features a configuration page that I came up with. So this is going to be a fun album, and believe it or not, we're going to be able to do it with all of that paper, those 6 sheets of paper. So to get started, we are going to make a normal lay flat cover, and I've already done that, and I'll give you the measurements here. I didn't write them down, but I will tell them to you now. And then again, down below in the cut guide, or in the description box, I have a cut guide. So you could go ahead and copy and paste and print that out. So for this entire binding, you will need, we're going to make a do-si-do album, so you need 3 pieces of heavyweight chipboard. I did receive that in my design team package. They measure 6 by 8. And then you will need 2 pieces for spines that measure 1 by 8. Then the cardstock to cover these, again, I used Kraft Artisan Cardstock from my stash. And you need 3 pieces total. Cover the 6 by 8 pieces of chipboard, and those measure 8 by 10. And then you need 2 pieces of cardstock to cover the spines that are 4 by 10. And then I used 2 pieces, let me turn this over and show you, for the inside of the spines that are 5 by 7 and 7/8. So this album, again, is going to be 6 by 8, and then it's going to have 2 1-inch spines, so it'll be 2 inches wide. And we're going to do this in a do-si-do fashion. So a do-si-do book, if I turn this around, there's going to be a lot of editing with my coughing, so sorry about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to end up attaching the second spine so that it is like that. And so I wanted to do that with you just to show you how it's going to look. So go ahead and cover as if you were doing a regular album with a lay flat method. And if you're not familiar with that method and how this is put together, I do have a separate video that will teach you everything you want to know about doing that. And that will be linked down below as well. So you make your first cover just like you would normally make it. And then with this, with the third piece of 6 by 8 and the second spine, go ahead and put that on. And you notice you won't have another cover because we're going to attach it here. And we're going to attach it so that it will look like this when all laid out. But when you fold it, this is what it's going to look like. Okay, so all of the wrap pieces will be to the outside. Okay, we're going to take care of covering everything else on the inside with pattern paper and things like that. So go ahead and make your third cover, make your spine and attach it, and then we're going to attach that one to this one. So to do that, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to turn this around just because it works better for me if I do it this way. It doesn't really matter which side goes which because it's all going to be the same in the end. I'm going to take off my score tape here and I'm going to put my glue on. I do score tape on the spines and I don't do it too close to the edge of the spine. And then I put a little bit of glue right in the middle, if I can get my glue to work, of those score tape pieces, like so. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my scoreboard and I'm going to use the edge here to make sure everything's lined up. Okay, so I want to make sure that everything's as straight as possible. So again, I'm going to be attaching this piece here. Okay, and I do want the kind of open rough edge of the book up. Okay, so I'm going to lay that down, and when I lay this down, I'm going to go about 1/8 of an inch away from you know, the edge of that spine, just to give myself a little bit more wiggle room for closing the book. Okay, so once I do that, I'm going to turn this over, grab my bone folder, and I'm going to burnish this down really well. Okay. Okay, so now when we have that done, when we fold it up, this is how the album will open. And then you turn it, you have the nice wrap spine on the outside and open it up. Okay, so a do-si-do album. So then the last thing to do is we need to put that extra piece to cover the inside of the spine. So this is the piece that is 5 by 7 7/8. I have prepped it with score tape on the back. And I don't use glue on these pieces. I think the score tape works much better. And it's a little bit more flexible because of the bending of the spine. And so I always use score tape on that. And I do get those sheets from Country Craft Creations. And then I'm going to just lay that down. It's 7 7/8, so it won't go all the way to the top or the bottom. Okay, I'm going to grab my bigger spreader here. And I'm just going to kind of burnish that down, okay? Now, don't worry about all of this. All of this is going to get covered up with pattern paper, so you're not going to see it, okay? Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do to prep this, I'm going to get my other bone folder. This one I like better because it has, it's as a little bit duller than the one that I use for actually scoring my papers. And I like it better for this. That's just my personal preference. But I'm going to fold this up just a little bit and find that crease. And then I'm going to go into that crease with my bone folder. And I'm going to be kind of gentle at first. I don't want to rip my papers, but I'm just going to try to mold that little extra space to the chipboard, okay? Just get that kind of worked in there. And then I like to turn it around and do it from the opposite side too. Sometimes that helps me get better angles and get that nice and molded around. And then I also will go on the back side and I'll go in that little space and go ahead and burnish that down as well. Okay, so now we have a nice covered album, and there's no real, you know, front or back. You just want to make sure that it opens to the left. But that is how I made that particular cover. Okay, so now what I need to do, the next thing for this particular album, is we're going to need to place some seam binding on this right now to prep for the next part, which is covering the pattern papers. Now we really do need to do the seam binding right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of designate which one's going to be the front and which one's going to be the back, just so I can keep myself from getting it upside down and backwards and all that stuff. So I wrote back on the back, wrote front on the front. So what I want you to do is I want you to lay your piece out flat, have the front facing up, and then because of the closures for the waterfalls, we're going to go ahead and put our seam binding on. Some of the seam binding will come off the top, and then what it will do is wrap around the covers to go to the back side. So for example, let's just go ahead and do the first one. So the first one, now I did have some seam binding in my kit. I got the Fig and I got New Rust. I did have to add a little bit more because I did use some of this in the first project. So I did add a couple more colors. I got some moss green and some brown that go with the colors. You can use any colors you want. And for each of the waterfalls that I'm going to put on this, we're going to make 4 of them. So the next thing we're going to do is add our seam binding to our book, and we're going to add them in some weird spots. So I wanted to explain it to you. So I've got this piece opened. The front is over here on the right, and it's all laid out. We're going to add a piece of seam binding here to the bottom, and then in the middle piece, we're going to add it to the top. And the reason why we're going to do that is because when we put the waterfall in on the inside of the front cover, I want this seam binding to wrap around to the inside and tie the waterfall closed. And I want it to wrap around the cover so that it is nice and secure and it won't rip the pattern paper on this side. Now, if you forget to do this, it's not the end of the world, but that's why I'm doing it this way. So I was going to show you how to do that. So the first thing, again, is open it to the front. We're going to add a little piece of seam binding here, a little piece of seam binding here, and then we're going to turn it over to the back, okay? And we're going to do the opposite. We're going to add the seam binding to the top on the back, and then the bottom here on the middle, okay? So I did have the Fig seam binding and the New Rust seam binding in my design team package, and I did have to add 2 more colors, which turned out really great. So from my Country Craft Creations stash, I added brown and the moss. So I'm going to lay these down. I'm just going to center on the 6-inch side of the cover. So I'm going to grab my centering ruler, 3 inches from the center. I lay down a piece of score tape and put my seam binding down. And then I put my score tape here. This is going to make sense in a minute. This is my little Michelle security blanket here. So we'll do the next one together, and then I'll do the other ones off camera and then come back. But I'm just going to center in that 3 inches. I'm going to put down my seam binding. There we go. So there's my score tape. Take that off. And the next color I'm going to use is the New Rust, and I'm just going to lay that down right in the middle. And then put my little security blanket on, and then I'm going to flip this over, okay? So 1 on the front, 1 at the bottom, in the middle, 1 at the top. Then we turn it over, and then we have on the back side, we're going to do the opposite. 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom. The one in the center, this one's going to flip over this way, and the one at the bottom here will flip over to the other side. So that's why we're doing it that way, okay? Now I'm going to finish this up, and I will come right back, and we'll go to the next step. So now that my seam binding is on, the next thing to do is we're going to put our covers on, and I do want to show you a picture of how I cut the pattern papers for the cover. So I did receive the glitter cardstock from Craft Perfect by Tonic, and I did cut 2 pieces that will go on the front and the back cover, and these pieces measure 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. So those will go on first. And then you saw in the video or in the picture that I cut the pattern paper. And what I did was I cut that top strip off first. Get my ruler in the right direction at 7 5/8 inch tall first. I cut that whole top section off. And then I cut the 2 pieces into 6 inches. And then what I did was I took and cut 1 1/4 inches off of the sides. They're going to overlap just a little bit, okay? So again, I cut that strip off at 7 5/8, and then I cut the 2 pieces into 6 inch pieces, and then I cut on this side, I cut the 1 1/4 inch off that side, and then the back cover, I'll show you this one. When you, I'll put this ribbon here for just a second because that's going to be a decorative piece. So when I cut that piece, this was the other 6 inch piece, right? Or actually it went like this. It was this. And when I turned it over, I cut that piece off, that strip off, and it was 1 1/4 inches. So that's going to go on the back cover, okay? And then, so again, another piece of gold. And then what we're going to do is the ribbon that I received in the package, that is the golden champagne satin ribbon, I'm going to put over the edge of that. So let me show you how this goes together, and then I'll do the other one off camera, and then those will get glued down, okay? So this glitter card, the one thing you do have to remember with this is that, oh, and I forgot to tell you, when you cut your papers, when you cut your pattern papers, do it, if you're going to do the same challenge that I did, cut that top strip off first. The bottom strips we're going to use for other things, and it's important that you cut that top section off first, okay? So when you put this down, I did want a little bit of an extra border, so that's why I cut it 1/4 inch shorter. And then do take your time with the glitter card. I'm still not quite trying to get it nice and even. You do want to make sure that you take time, because this will slip a little teeny bit on that glitter card. You got to give it a little bit extra to kind of set, so you don't want to go too quick with this. Give it a little bit of time and love, and make sure that it sets well. And it will, and it does, but you want to make sure. The other thing, I did not ink any of my edges, but you certainly could if you wanted to. And take this piece, and I turned it over. I wanted that little kind of extra bit of color on the covers. We're going to put glue on this, and then I'm going to glue that right. It'll overlap just a little bit, and that's okay. I wanted it to. Okay. And the art glitter glue will dry clear, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay. So then I'm going to take, once I get that done, then I'm going to take my score tape, and I'm just going to put a little bit of score tape. I'm going to put it right over that line. Okay. And then I cut my ribbon so that it would overlap just a little bit, so I can wrap it around the edges. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this down, and I'm going to just put this like right at the 1.5 inch mark. I'm using my grid for that. That will cover that edge and make a nice pretty border for that. Then we'll turn it over, and I'm going to add my score tape back here, and then just flip that over and glue that down, and that'll be a really pretty decorative edge for your cover. Okay, so this one is the front cover. Okay, and so let's get our book, and making sure that all of our seam binding pieces are where they need to be, and then we'll just glue this onto the front. That's going to be the front cover. okay? Isn't that pretty? I think it looks really pretty with that ribbon there. So let's take this off, and then I'm going to glue this down. Now the back of this glitter card is also kind of slick, so just please be careful when you lay it down and give it a little extra attention when you lay it down, because it will slip a little tiny bit. You know, it's a little slippery, but I'm sorry about the cold. I wish I wasn't sick, that's for sure. And I hope that this tutorial makes sense and I'm not gonna goof it up too much, but if you have any questions, always please ask. I'm always available to help with anything, okay? All right, so that's the front cover done. Now we need to flip our piece over and we're going to do the back cover. And we're going to basically do it the opposite direction, okay? So the back cover, or actually we're going to do it the same, because I'll show you in a sec. Let's just get a clip and I'll show you, because essentially, like, there is no real, I mean, like, no real front and back. It's not like a traditional back cover. So we're going to do it actually the same. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So if we just glue everything down the same way, do the ribbon the same way, and then we're going to attach it here. So I'll do that and I'll come back. We'll go to the next step. Back cover is on now, or the front, depending on which way you like it. But I did the papers opposite, so it's the same strip of paper, but I just did them opposite. Does that make sense? And then, but glue them down in the same configuration, because it, you know, literally can be either side, can be the front. All right, so I'm calling this one my front. And then the next thing we need to do is cover our pieces with pattern papers. So let me show you pattern papers to cover the inside. I used 2 sheets of the pattern paper. I'm going to show you those pictures right now. So when you open the front cover, I took that strip, cut it at 7 7/8 first, kept the bottom portion because we're going to use that later, and then cut it at 5 7/8. So 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. Cut that 7 7/8 inch piece first, okay? Very important. Then I put one piece here, one piece here. So that was opening the front of the book. Here's the back of the book. One piece here, one piece here. So I did it so that it was, what's the word I'm looking for? My brain, my cold brain isn't working. It is the same. I don't know. I'm losing my words. It'll come to me in a minute. Okay, so I did that. That's the next step. Okay, so I'm going to open up my book and I'm going to glue these down. Okay, so I'm going to take these clips off. I'm going to glue those down. We'll come back for the next step. Now, I do want to say here real quick, I did sacrifice the tag paper for this project. I used a lot of the tags in the other project, but for this one, I sacrificed that paper, and I should have told you this before, but I did keep this paper off to the side. I'm going to use these elements in the rest of this book. So I wanted to tell you that as well. So again, I'm going to glue these down. I sacrificed that page too, because I used that page a lot in the other one because it was a journal. So anyways, I'm going to finish gluing these down and then I will be back. Pattern papers are on both sides. So the next thing I wanted to share with you is that we're going to start working so that the front cover is here. This seam binding here is going to wrap around that cover. So I'm just going to tuck that down there so I don't get goofed up. This one is going to wrap up to the top here. This one here is going to wrap from the top to the bottom. Does that make sense? This one here is going to go to the back side, and this one here is going to wrap around that cover and go to the back side. Okay, so I want it to go around the cover. I definitely want that to happen, okay? That way it won't pull on the pattern paper and it gives it a little bit more stability. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our waterfalls on, okay? So I have 3 of the 4 made. I'm going to show you how to make one in just a second, but basically this is what's going to happen. So we're going to make our waterfall. We're going to put it on here. These are 4 by 4, and we're going to just center that so it's 1 inch from the bottom and 1 inch from the sides, okay? And we're just going to put that down, and then this is where that tie is going to come up, and it's going to tie those together, okay? Pretty easy peasy. These are my stacked waterfalls, and these are, I have a big tutorial on how to make them and how to figure them out and everything. I'll link that down below too, but I love this method of making waterfalls. And this is where I used the cardstock, the coordinating cardstock that I received in my design team package. So this is how I chose to use it, because I thought that would be a real fun idea to give a colorful waterfall. And I was wrong. It's going to be 3/4 of an inch from the bottom. Sorry, I put a disclaimer in there. Cold medicine, yikes, right? Okay, so 3/4 inch, 2 inches from the center, and that should give us, yep, what we need, okay? 3 1/4 inch from the top and the bottom, inch from the side, okay? So, sorry about that. I'm just going to kind of burnish that down. Make sure my glue isn't seeping where I don't want it. And this will give you, there's going to be some decoration here. So you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 photo mats on each waterfall, plus a spot down here. So essentially you've got 12 pictures here. If you want to count all of the spaces, you could even put one here if you wanted to. Then this will fold around that bottom cover, and then this is what it's going to tie everything shut. Okay, so that is what we're going to do with the waterfalls. We're going to do 4 of those. Obviously we have the 4 different seam bindings that we're going to use. So let's show you how to make the waterfall. Oh, actually, let's do it on the other side, because it's going to go on the inside front cover. This is where this fig seam binding is coming up from the bottom, and this is the one that I'm going to show you how to make. Okay, so let's put this off to the side and get our scoreboard. So each of those cardstock pieces that I had 4 different colors. I cut into 4-inch strips. And let's just lay it out and I'll show you. Ignore the score lines for just a second. So it was a 12 by 12, and I cut 3 strips at 4 inches, and then I cut one at 10.5, 9.5, and 8.5. Okay, so those are the 3 pieces you're going to need: 4 by 10.5, 4 by 9.5, 4 by 8.5. And then we're going to score. And these are the stacked waterfalls. They're super simple. Put them in your scoreboard. They're 4 by 4 pages. You're going to score at 4 and turn it around, score at 4. You're going to do that on all of the pieces. And you're going to get gradually a smaller spine in between. So score at 4, turn, score at 4. Okay? The last piece, excuse me, score at 4, turn, score at 4. Get rid of our scoreboard. We'll fold and burnish. I love this method of making waterfalls. I discovered it as an aha moment, and I generally do not use any other method anymore for making waterfalls. These turn out perfect every time. I love that you don't have to fit, so many pieces together. It's a great method for doing waterfalls. So I do have a video that will show you how to put these all together and how to figure it out. So do check that out. Okay, so start with the biggest piece at the bottom. And I'm just going to use my grid here. You can use your grid. You could use a ruler. You could also use 1/2-inch spacers from Country Craft Creations. Actually, that's a 3/8 inch spacer. I should grab the one that's the correct size because that would be the smart thing to do. And I did it again. Oh my goodness, cold medicine, you guys. You can use your 1/2-inch spacers to do this. You can use your grid. You can use your ruler. However you decide is easier for you to line this up. I'm going to use my grid. One of the reasons why I decided to start using this grid is because then, you know, I just always have a ruler down when I need to, and it's nice. So I'm taking the second piece and I'm putting glue only in that spine piece. I'm going to line this up nice and straight, and then I'm just going to lay this down 1/2 inch away from the score on that bottom piece. And when I do that, I place this perfectly with 1/2 inch spaces for gussets, right? I almost said gutters. That's not right. Oh my gosh, you guys, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Oh, after this, I think I'm going to pass out. Okay, the last piece has a 1/2 inch spine here. So we're just going to put glue on that 1/2 inch. And again, I'm going to make sure that it's nice and even with my grid on my paper, and I'm just going to put it a 1/2 inch away again, giving me that gusset. Lay that down, and voila, with 2 pieces, you end up with a 6-page waterfall with 2 pieces. With 3 pieces, you end up with a 6-inch waterfall instead of having to do all those separate pieces, okay? So then I'm going to get my ruler and my score tape. We're going to set our seam binding so that we can close it. So I'm just going to center that 2 inches, put a little piece of tape there. Get my piece of seam binding that matches. And you know, you could mix and match too if you wanted to. I mean, you know, it's your book. Do what you want. Put your own flair on it, right? Okay, so this came from the strip that was left over from cutting our pattern paper for the covers that we just laid down. So you need 2 of these that are 3 7/8 by 3 7/8, and then save the rest of that piece. We're going to use that for something else, okay? So out of that strip, that's what you're going to do. And then we're just going to lay that down on the top, and it'll give us a nice little border. And then you can decorate this, or you could add a picture to it, whatever you want it to do. So I'm going to cut or cover this with some glue. That's how you make the waterfall. So you're going to make 4 of those. And I made 1 waterfall out of each of the colors of the cardstock that I had received in my design team package. So I thought that would be a real pretty way of using that cardstock and giving us a lot of real estate in this book, because you're gonna have 4 of these, okay? So then we'll go ahead and grab our piece again, and then you can excuse me, I can tell where it's going to go because I'm just matching my seam binding piece with this, right? And this is wrapped around from the cover from the outside, and it's going to wrap up to the top, and then we're going to just lay that down like so, okay? So again, let's do it the right way this time. 3/4 of an inch up, and we're going to put glue here. And I'm going to put 3/4 of an inch up, and then center that at it's 2 inches, and lay that down, okay? And then just make sure you wipe up any glue that might seep around. You don't want it gluing where you don't want it gluing, because that's bad. And then we'll fold that up and burnish that down, and voila. we have another waterfall, okay? So then that'll tie up, remember, from around the cover, and we'll finish tying knots and things later, okay? So then I have the other waterfalls. So this piece is wrapping around from the top. What we're going to do with this one, if it wraps around the top, what I'm going to do, not that one, this one, I am going to put the waterfall upside down. So then the bow will tie up here. I just thought that was kind of a fun way of doing it, and because the middle section has one wrapping around the top and then one wrapping around the bottom, that will kind of make it opposite. Does that make sense? So this one will go upside down, and then when we turn our book over, this next one will also go upside down because this one is coming from the top. So that's why I did. So I'm going to finish putting the waterfalls on, and then we'll move on to the next step. So I have my waterfalls on here, and the reason why I want to explain this. So I have them going in opposite directions because the middle part here, we need one seam binding coming from the bottom and one from the top. So that's why I did them opposite. So if you turn this over, the middle part here is in, you know, kind of the top down method. The one here is the bottom up method, or, you know, up, reverse, or waterfall, whatever you want to call it. So that's why I did that way. If you want your waterfalls to be in all the same direction, there will be a little bit of issue doing it on the middle part here, and you may have to do a little finagling down here with your seam binding. So just want to make sure you're aware of that. Now we're going to trim all that and cut those off in a minute, but that's what you should have right now. You should have the front of your album. Here is your waterfalls. Again, these pieces were cut from those strips left over from cutting our pages. This one came from the cover. Okay, so it was the cover paper here, and this one came from the bottom of this. Okay, so here we go. All right, so next thing to do now is to work on pages that we're going to add in here. I have already made one, and I'm going to make the second one with you, but we're going to do a configuration page that we're going to add to our album. So it's one of the ones where I cut it and fold it in a certain way, and it creates flaps and pages and pockets and things. So it's going to have a front pocket there. When you turn it over, there will be a flap, pocket, and then a page here. Very simple, but very effective, and it added so much real estate to this project. And because of the nature of this project, we're having one signature per spine. I did cut these a little bit different. So I did make them as tall as the album. So they are 8 inches tall. And we are going to be using the L-hinge method to put them in. And it'll make sense why I made them so tall once we get to decorating the gussets. I wanted them to be the same height, so it kind of camouflaged them a little bit better. The pockets are pretty deep. They're 4 inches deep. So the page itself on the front is 5.5 by 8, and then the flap back here is 5 1/8 by 8, and then it opens up. So you have like those 4 different pages with 2 pockets. You can fit a lot of 4 by 6 papers in here. You can do photo mats, whatever you want to do. So we will need to make this one piece for each page that's 12 by 12, and then you will need 2 pieces that are 1 by 4. Okay, so let's grab our scoreboard and do some scoring. So we're going to put it in our scoreboard, and we're going to score at 1/2 and at 3/4. That's going to give us the 1/2 inch for binding, and then the 1/4 inch for the give space. And we're going to slide on over to 6 1/4, score all the way down, and then go to 6 3/8 and score all the way down. I did an 1/8 inch gusset for that flap fold, just to make the pockets fit better, and then you also have a little bit more room to add things. Okay, so once you do the 6 1/4 and then 6 3/8, then you're going to slide on over to 11 1/2 and score all the way down. Okay, then we're going to turn it, and I'm turning mine counterclockwise to the left, and I'm scoring at 8. Okay, Then your two little pieces, these will help attach the pockets because we do need to make the pockets. They're 1 by 4. I'm going to put them in my scoreboard and score both of those at 1/2. All right, so let's take this out. This is for both of the pages. Get my scissors. Okay, so your binding and your give space is on the left side here. This bottom piece here, we're going to save those to make part of the pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to the side and I'm just going to cut. I'm going to cut the score line out straight through those first 2 pieces, okay? And then I'm going to miter this whole section here, okay? And that's just going to help us create our pocket. So I'm going to cut that out and cut that out, and I'm going through the 1/2 and the 1/4 inch space, okay? We're going to go over here and we're going to miter the 1/2 inch space at the bottom. That will create our pocket on the back side of the flap. And then I'm going to cut this 1/2 inch piece out, and I want to make sure that I cut that score line out. So I'm going to go to the left, however it's easier for you to see it, but cut that whole score line out of that piece, okay? I'm just cutting that 1/2 inch piece all the way up. You can use your trimmer if you'd like, but there you have it, okay? And then this little 1/8 inch section, this is going to be a little bit hard, but we're going to cut that out. And again, I'm going to cut right outside of that score line. I want that score line completely out. That gives us just a little bit more wiggle room for that pocket. And I'm just going to go up to that 4 inch score, okay? So again, I'm just cutting that score line completely out. Okay, so now I have that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this pocket up for a second. Make sure it's nice and even. Burnish that. I'm going to fold the other one to the back. Okay, so the smaller, less wide pocket to the back. And then we'll be able to snip off this little nub in here. Nice and flush. Okay, so that's what we have so far. So we need to do some folding and some burnishing. So let's start with the binding and the give space. So I'm going to flip those to the back and then burnish. Make sure we get it nice and straight. And I'm using Kraft. It's a little bit heavier than regular Artisan Cardstock. It feels like, anyway. Maybe it's just the difference in the kind of paper, but it feels a little bit sturdier. Okay, so then I'm going to fold this bottom piece to the front, burnish that down. That will flip up and create that pocket. And this is where we're going to use one of those 1 by 4 inch pieces, okay? And then we're going to fold, let's go ahead and fold these, the 1/2 inch, or excuse me, the 1/8 inch gusset. And I'm being kind of gentle with it when I'm laying that over. Burnish that down. If you have difficulty with that 1/8 inch space folding, you can use one of your Country Craft Creations spacers, because it is about 1/8 of an inch, and it can help you fold that second edge, which, me being in my little brain fog with my cold, isn't looking as easy as it is. Oh gosh, I gotta quit laughing. I'm gonna start coughing again. Ay, ay, ay. All right, so we have our little 1/8 inch gusset there. Okay, then this one will fold to the back. That's going to create our pocket on the back. Okay, all right, so this is what we have right now with our binding, our give space. We've got our pocket folded up, and then we've got the page, our flap, and our pocket folded up. Okay, so grab these two pieces. Let's fold and burnish at the 1/2 inch. These are just going to complete our pockets. And then we'll just miter these and add these to the pockets, okay? So I'm just gonna miter. Like so. Okay, we're just going to add those to the inside of the pocket. So I'm just going to put glue on one side first and put that down to the edge. Like so. Fold that over. A little bit of glue. This is a really simple kind of configuration page, but this added, again, a lot of real estate with basically one piece of 12 by 12 cardstock, which was nice, okay? So that first pocket, oh, look what I did. I didn't put this one down. Let's glue this one down too. That will complete the pocket. And then I didn't trim that. I just used that whole 3/4 inch piece to make the pocket because it doesn't really matter. Okay, flip it over. We're going to do the same thing. So lay that down. I'm just checking. My brain is foggy and I did forget to hit play one time, so there you go. Ooh. Okay, we'll glue both tabs this time. I think that probably worked better. Okay. All right, there's our page. These pages will go inside the spine. So we're going to put one here, and then when we flip the book, here's technically the back, and then we're going to put one here. It may be easier to add all your pattern papers before we do that, so let's do that. Let's talk about that. So I have the papers ready to go here, and then what I'll do is glue them on and we'll come to the next step. So for each of these pieces, I cut the papers pretty much the same. So let's start by talking about the front of the page. So for your pages, again, we're going to do the pages the same way and make them the same. So I'm going to show you how I cut the papers and where they go, and then I will put them together and show you how it goes. So from the strip that we cut off of the cover pages, I'm going to show you a picture of that again right now. You had this bottom strip, and I cut it into two pieces that were 5 3/8 by the rest of it, okay? And I left that bottom piece on because this is going to go down into the pocket, and it's going to help cover the tabs. So nobody's going to see that, and that's going to cover all of that. And then for the pocket pages, for the front, there was a piece left over of your diagonal paper left over from cutting those squares that we covered the waterfalls. There was a piece left over. That is going to go here. And then you had a piece of this paper that was left over that I'm going to show you in a second. We cut several pieces off of that. And we're using the back side. What we're going to do is use that as a pocket. And then I took a piece of the gold paper, and I believe I started off with, like, it was about 5/8 inch wide. And then I used my favorite scallop punch and then trimmed it to 3 7/8. And we're going to put that at the edge of that pocket, okay? And just create another little pocket on top of the pocket using the pattern paper, okay? So then with that leaf paper, again, with the brown, okay? So we cut another top strip off, and this is 7 7/8, and this is 5 inches, okay? So we need 2 of those. So take that, you took that top strip, cut 7 7/8 inch off, and then cut 2 5-inch pieces. those two 5-inch pieces are going to go right here, okay, on that particular part of your page. And again, each page is separate. Now in the picture that I'm going to show you again right now, there's a strip right here. When you cut that paper off, that's what we used for this piece right here, okay? Then the bottom section here, we're going to cut into two pieces that are 5 by 3 7/8. Let me show you where that goes. Let me just put these off to the side for a second because they're going to kind of fly around. I'm going to turn my page over. This piece here is going to go on this pocket. All right, it's upside down, but there you go. That's going to go on that pocket. And then we have a piece of paper I'm going to show you right now. And again, we're going to cut this into two pieces. We're going to start by cutting the 7 7/8 inch off the top, and then cut it into two pieces that are 5 3/8. That will cover the back widest part of that configuration page. The bottom strip below is what we used for the waterfalls, okay? And then we also, let's see, yeah, that's it. And then what we're going to do is the strip that was left over of this green paper where we sacrificed that, this again is going to go into the pocket. So I cut that strip into two pieces that were 5 inches by the rest of it. And again, I just want to, I'm going to use that because it's going to go into the pocket and cover those tabs. So when we put our pieces in, nobody's going to look under there. It's going to be fine, okay? So that's how we're going to do that. Then I cut some photo mats. So for the big page behind, 4x6 out of Natural Artisan Cardstock, that's going to go on that page. And then on the front of this page where we had the leaf paper, I hope this makes sense. I hope this makes sense, guys. I'm going to put two photo mats here and here. And I cut these at Natural Artisan Cardstock at 4.5 by 3.5. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. I'm going to glue these together on both of the pages, and then I'll come back and we'll go through it one more time. Pages are done, and I just wanted to go through it again. So again, these are strips cut from the cover papers, that full bottom strip, and I just cut them into two pieces that were 5 and I'm going to just double check 3/8 inch wide. And I did leave the branding strip on just because it went into the pocket farther and covered the tabs. These pieces were left over from cutting the papers that I used for the fronts of the waterfalls. So again, those are from the bottom strips of the papers. I cut two pieces at 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 for the waterfalls from each of these, and then the leftovers is what I had for the pockets. And then I layered this piece over top and used a little bit of gold for the border of the pocket. And then when you turn the page, then you have these two papers. And again, I cut the 7 7/8 inch off the top first, and then cut these at 5 inches to fit the 5 1/8 inch page, okay? And then I used the two 4.5 by 3.5 Natural Artisan Cardstock photo mats on those. Then when you open up the pages, then you have the two inside pockets, again, bottom strips that were left over, cut to fit, and then the bottom strips here cut to fit. And then on the inside pages, this was one piece of paper. I think I actually cut it this direction. So this was one piece of paper, 7 7/8 inch off the top first, cut the two pieces to fit, 5 3/8 and 5 3/8, okay? And then the bottom piece is what I used for other things, okay? So that's how I got this whole album covered with 5 sheets of patterned paper. Pretty cool. So let's grab our book, and we're going to put those in. So here's our book folded up right now. So I'm calling this one my front cover. And then we're going to go to the spine. So I'm just going to lay it all out. The inside of the spine is where we're going to put our pages. So make sure you got that. And then we're going to take our first page that we're going to place. And again, this is the L hinge binding, and I'm going to put it down here, but you can see that it's going to go the whole height of the book. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to show you a little trick, because we only have one signature, basically. Or one page, I should say. So I'm going to fold that 1/2 inch back. I'm going to put glue on here. And actually, I shouldn't have folded it back because it'll be easier if I open it. Okay, so I'm going to open it up. So I've got the glue on the back. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it right up to the edge of that spine. And then top and bottom. Okay, so it's basically going to go the full height of the book right at the edge of the spine. And you can see how that kind of camouflages into the spine here. There's no extra room. It's a 1 inch spine. So we're going to utilize kind of that whole 1/2 inch on each side. Okay, so it's right smack dab in the middle of that spine. And then my thought was I'm going to use the gold paper because I didn't have much pattern paper left over, that's for sure. And that's what I'm going to use to cover all of my spine pieces. So I did cut 2 pieces that are just shy of 1 inch to cover the 1 inch outside spines. Okay, so I cut 2 of those, and then I cut 4 pieces that are 7 7/8 tall by 3/8 inch wide, and those are going to cover the gussets of the pages. Okay, between the pages. So you need 4 of those. So now that that guy is glued down, let's make sure I hid my bone folder from myself yet again. Good gravy. What did I do with it this time? Found it. Okay, so here's our page. Here's our 3/8 by 7 7/8. Glue, and right in that 1/2 inch gusset space before the page. There we go. Okay. All right. Flip the page, grab another one, and that's what we're going to do with that. So I usually do my pages shorter than the cover, but in this particular case, because there's only one, I was trying to figure out how I would do this and make it look really nice and continuous and symmetrical. That was the word I was looking for earlier, symmetrical. Told you it'd come to me. All right, so there's that. That's that page. Okay, so then if we scooch on over here, this is the outside spine. So we're going to put that page or piece that's just shy of 1 inch down. I think the gold all the way through this in the various spots really adds a little extra something, something. Don't you? I think it's pretty cool. Okay. All right. So then our book would close, and then we got to open it this way. We're going to add our other page and our other pieces. So this is our second page, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to add glue to that 1/2 inch. Bottom of my piece and right up against that spine chipboard edge there, like so. Okay. And then we can add our gusset pieces. Isn't this fun? And then we're done. And then all that's left is decoration. So you will have seen that in the walkthrough, but I'll tell you a couple things right now before we get to that point. And, oops, I'm sorry guys. I'm kind of a mess today. Like I said, after this, I think I'm gonna go take a nap. Okay. Last piece down. All right, so there you go. So that is the construction of the book. Now, I did tell you before that I saved this piece that I can use for decorating, so I've got that. I wanted to show you, this is all that I had left of my pattern paper for those 6 pieces, or the 5 pieces that I used to cover this book, plus that other piece I showed you. I only had 6 pieces of the pattern paper for this book. I do have these bits and pieces that I'm going to use for decorating, so you will have seen that in the walkthrough. And then the other thing that I did do, and I want to show you real quick, is I made some more photo mats. So first off, I took a piece of the cardstock, and I did make 2 more photo mats, or actually I'm gonna make 4 more photo mats. Where's the other 2? There they are. These are all 4 by 6, and then I cut the Natural Artisan at 3 7/8 by 5 7/8. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sacrifice the bottom portion here of this cut apart sheet and create 2 that actually have pattern paper on them. So I think that's what I'm gonna do with those. And then I decided I just wanted a little something else. I had little bits left over of ribbon and the seam binding that I got in my package. So I grabbed some of my Country Craft Creations twine, and I grabbed my Heartfelt Creations dies for making these tags that I bought from Country Craft Creations a long time ago. And I die cut the Kraft and the Natural Artisan Cardstock. Now, if you don't have this die, it is 4 inches by, I believe it's 6 inches, so you can make your own tags. And then I just thread a piece of seam binding and a piece of the ribbon through and tied it with a bow, and those will go into those pockets on the pages. So that is what I wanted to share with you. That is the construction of my Do-Si-Do Waterfall album. So you have the front cover, you have a waterfall here, then you have a page, there's a pocket here, and then a pocket we created with the pieces of pattern paper. You have a flap that opens up with another pocket, and you got a photo mat here and here, and then you have another waterfall. And I did the seam binding again to wrap around the covers to help protect our pattern paper. And then it closes with our pretty spine. Here's the back, and then we have a waterfall, another pocket page, another flap, pocket page, and this. And then the last thing I want to show you before we're done with this tutorial is how I plan on closing it. So with our package, where did my ribbon go? I got this beautiful ribbon in my package, and what I'm going to do is simply wrap it around my album and tie it in a bow, and that's going to keep everything all together. And the reason why I didn't attach it to anything is because of the nature of my Do-Si-Do album, and it's huge. So I really hope you like that. I think it's really fun. There's a lot of real estate in this album. You have 4 waterfalls that will hold at least 11 pictures. You have 2 pages that have 3 photo mats plus whatever you want to put in your pockets. There's a ton of space in this album, and I made it with the 3 pieces, or the, excuse me, 6 pieces of pattern paper, 4 pieces of the cardstock that I received in my package, and I was able to make this along with using the same amount of things to make the junk journal. So I'll have the link for this project down below as well. So thank you so much for watching. If you haven't seen the walkthrough, please check that out. Check out everything down in the links below for the products and for videos and all the other things that I mentioned. So thanks so much. Have a great day. Stay crafty and stay well. Take care. Bye-bye.